HR interviews should be 100% dependent on examples and anecdotes from your past. A lot of people, when they answer, it seems very textbooky because either they are trying to make up something that they have not done, or they don't know how to go back and give an example of exactly what they have done. And I'm interviewing an intern, I definitely ask their stories, their story with their friends when they're wasted, or their stories from probably the next tapri or chai wala that was next to their college. Those are the most funny stories, but they give you the flavor of who this person is. So he told me that his father used to own a electric shop, right? Which was a very small electric shop, and they used to like repair fans over there. So not enough money. So he was using a laptop that someone gave to his father after their kids were done with it, and it was not working. So his father, being an electrician, he was able to repair it a little bit and hand it over to them. And this guy was, if I move away of the fan or close or shut off the cooler, what it'll do is my laptop will heat out and it will shut down in between. So I know I'm feeling cold right now, but I have to do this and I cannot afford a laptop. As a human, we need to bring in human efforts than recruit. Personalizing your call, building a relationship with a candidate, building a rapport with a candidate, making sure that the candidate knows that you are not, trying to push the candidate to join you, but you are trying to help them make the best decision about their career, right? So people these days do not understand that there's a difference between bargaining and negotiating. One of the things that helps me into my negotiation is a very simple question. Talk about two things that you absolutely loved about your last organization and two things that you thought could be improved, which tells us what is it that he likes and what it is that he hates about the organization. Always stay in touch with your recruiter friends, because they might have a candidate that didn't fly for their organization but could fly for yours.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of The Curious Show. Today's guest is Aakash, who is a leader and a veteran with over decades experience in the talent acquisition function. Now, what makes Aakash so different is his sheer passion to give back to the community, and he has personally mentored over 37,000 people through his various community initiatives. And it's this wealth of diverse knowledge which made this a very, very helpful and useful episode for anyone in the HR function, when especially you're job hunting, whether you're a fresher starting out or you're in your mid-level career. Akash shares tactical advice, insider secrets on interview processes, how to answer tricky questions, and much, much more. He also went into a lot of depth with actionable advice and, may I say, secrets which recruiters must know. So tune in and listen to the whole episode ideally, or skip to the relevant parts. It's up to you, because there's a lot of useful advice which can help you in your job hunt. Also, if you're new here and work in HR or love the people function generally, please consider subscribing to my channel. I'll really appreciate it. Now, back to the show. Hey Akash, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thanks, Anak. I'm good. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, Akash, super excited to do this. Yeah. See, Akash, I want to, like you said, like we were discussing before we started, I want to give value, right? Give value to the folks who are listening in. And again, we are talking about this. There's a high chance that the people who are listening in are from the people function between the ages of 24 to 35. Please put a comment if you're actually that and I've got that right. And if you're from the people function, what I've noticed is, see, there's a lot of talk and a lot of content about generic content about what to do when you're looking for a job, right? But rarely is there anything that is very focused to someone who's working in the people function, who's maybe just starting out their career or mid senior, right? And I wanted someone like you who's got decades of experience in the talent acquisition function, leading the functions, who've seen this, and I'm sure you've hired thousands and thousands of people. You mentored 37,000 plus. That's a crazy number of people you've mentored, right? And I think you're the perfect person to sort of give the whole take on, how to be successful at an interview, right? A lot of people in a function now are coming in looking for jobs. What would your sort of best practices covering the whole gamut of hiring from the lens of a recruiter be, right? Especially focused on our people function.
Sure, that's a very good question, because majority of people that I mentor or I speak with, they come up with this question as well. So I'm sure that whatever I'm going to answer might help majority of them as well. So what happens is, people as an industry, people or HR as an industry is a huge industry, right? People tend to forget that there are people who will be doing HR generalist work. There'll be people who will be doing HR VP work. There are people that will be doing recruiting, and we tend to forget that these jobs are widely different from one another. One of the classic examples of it is, I'll take my example itself. So I was a recruiter since beginning. right? And when I had about 4 or 5 years of experience, I had done some work in employee engagement and stuff like those that you generally do, being the part of the people org. And the challenge that I was facing is that I was trying to transition into HRB, right? I was trying to find roles of HRBPs, and I got a very solid reality check the moment I sat down in a couple of different interviews. That boss is not same. And because
Mm-hmm.
I was doing talent acquisition, I know how people ops works. I knew how employee engagement works. But the moment I sat in an interview, I realized that it's not all the same. It's widely different, and there are 10,000 things that people do within different segmentations of it itself. Now, more often than not, a lot of people, when they set into interview, especially within our industry, they tend to forget that. It's like saying I'm a developer and I can do any coding, right? Which is generally not possible, right? Because you have different segmentations, you have front end developers, back end developers, Python developers, and everyone is different, right? Similarly, within HR is like developer, right? And then you have different functions that have entirely different line of work, that has entirely different tools, technologies, processes, policies that you use, right? And because we forget that, we tend to generally do bad at interviews, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we try to over explain a lot of things that we think we have done, even though we have not. So one of the key things that I'll tell people whenever I'm starting to mentor them, or we are talking about interviews and stuff. First of all, whenever you sit on an interview, before you sit on an interview, you need to have an understanding of what are different verticals within HR, and especially to your crowd that is 24 to 35 years old, especially this particular generation or this particular experience or age group. They do not understand that these verticals are so different from one another, right? So number one is, when you're starting off your career, you're 21, 22, 23 years old, I would recommend you to first of all understand the basics at least of each different vertical and how they are different, not how they are connected. What wrong people do is they start figuring it out in form of what is connection between between the different verticals, but they also need to understand what are the differences between the verticals. That's one. Once you have that kind of an information, then try to speak with people who have done specialization in that particular industry itself. As an example,
Correct. Yeah.
if let's say I'm an HR generalist, right? I'm sitting down an interview, and let's say I am very fascinated by HRBP's role and stuff. Before I get into an interview, I should actually know in and out of HRBPs. How do I know that? Is by connecting with people who are doing actually HRBP stuff, and not just presuming that because I do this connected,
Mm.
I'll be able to do it, right? So you have to find out differences. One, once you are able to find out differences and challenges, then only you will be able to understand if you are willing to do that or not. Now, the second step is, I tell this to a lot of people, is before you start switching verticals between jobs, try to get that exposure within the organization that you're currently working at. So you get a flavor of if it's even for you or not. The reason that I'm telling you all of this is because you give an interview well, not when you understand the industry, but when you enjoy that work. As an example, if you sit down with me, I've done HRBP work, I've done HR ops work in the past as well. But if you sit down with me and start asking questions about HRBP, I'll be able to give you answer, but that those will be very textbook answers, because I didn't enjoy doing that. I enjoy doing talent acquisition. You sit down and ask me talent acquisition question out of the blue, and I'll be able to tell you an answer. Something that I might not have even done ever in my life. I would be able to tell you an answer because I enjoy doing it. So the third level is definitely trying to focus only on the vertical that you enjoy. Once you're able to do it, you'll be able to form more answers. Last is, HR is not like any other industry wherein you can sit down and you can, let's say coders, you can sit down and you can code and prove how good you are. HR interviews should be 100% dependent on examples and anecdotes from your past. A lot of people, when they answer, it seems very textbooky because either they are trying to make up something that they have not done, or they don't know how to go back and give an example of exactly what they have done. So it should always go back to examples. More examples you give during an interview, more are your chances to get in, right? So if someone says that I am facing, let's say you have to do this, or I'm facing this challenge, how will you solve? Go back to an example. It might not be 100% same, but there should be some connection, like a transferable skill, and tell them that this is an example of what I've done and you can relate it to your situation. That's how I'll be able to solve it. So I think a lot of people don't give examples. That's another thing that is extremely important when you're giving an interview as an HR.
Got it. A couple of double clicks there for people listening in. You said there are different functions, right? And we know, right? There are different functions within HR. Not many people actually know that. Do you
Mhm.
want to just elaborate what are the various
Mhm.
verticals, functions, sub functions within a people function?
Sure. So at the surface level, if you look at it, right? So there is one is talent acquisition. That are the gatekeepers of talent, right? That bring in the talent. I'll tell it in a way so that it looks like a flow, right? So first are talent acquisition or recruiters. There's a little bit of difference between talent acquisition and recruiters per se, but we can cover that up as well later on. So first are recruiters slash talent acquisition folks. That are the gatekeeper of bringing people in. Once people are in, then there is a process of entire onboarding that happens. Now some organizations might have onboarding specialists, as a complete vertical. Some people will keep HR generalists doing that, right? Now the onboarding is done. Now the particular person is inside the system, so they need a support system from the HR group, that are the HR BPs that manage single verticals. One vertical can have a number of people. Now, not just that, but they can also face some challenges regarding policies and procedures. So they are having challenges with the function. HRBP helps them. But when it comes to policies, there has to be someone who knows the document by its word, and that's where HR generalists come again. Or at some companies, they also call them compliance folks. That'll come down and put down compliances or documentations in place. Next up are HR operations. A lot of companies will call HR operations and HR generalists as same, but in my view, HR operations are people that take care of more of an employee engagement or a culture enablement standpoint. Now, if you go ahead a little more, now the person is in, they have worked for a month, they need paychecks. The paychecks are taken care by payroll folks, right? Again, same thing. HR generalists are people that can do everything, but then again, I'm talking about different verticals within that as well. Now that they are working over there, any organization, you need to measure their performance. So that's where performance management specialists come into the picture. If their performance is not up to the mark, you don't always let them go. You also help them in building their skills up. So you have L&D folks, and organizational development folks. If you go even further, like, these guys are pretty much good with what they are doing. Now you want to make sure that they are deployed at right projects at right point of time. You have talent management folks that also somewhere look at organizational development and culture enablement, but they'll also take care of people from a standpoint that they are deployed at the right projects based on their skills. Next up is the kind of those people. I mean, this is specifically for people that have a lot of experience, is someone who does M&As, mergers and acquisitions. Mergers and acquisition, HR plays a very critical role in merger and acquisition. One of my previous experiences was with I was working with Fractal, and Fractal acquired a company called as Neil Analytics. I was working with Neil, so we worked over there to make sure that everything goes well. Next up is kind of the coders in the HR world, the HR analytics folks, who work with numbers to see what comes in, what goes out, kind of in between accountants and in between people analytics folks, wherein they'll look at what's the kind of people that we might need, and they'll do forecasting, they'll do a lot of, you know, uh, people management from number standpoint, how many people are going out, how many people should we need, and stuff like those. So this is like on a very surface level, these are the type of people there can be. But then, you know,
Hmm.
each one has its own set of pros and cons.
I'll add one more to that, which is HR tech. The again can be generous, but most large companies now have somebody who's again, these are not coders; these are
Hmm.
techno-functional experts
Yeah.
who understand tech, bring in tech, and then they work with the analytics. But lovely, thanks. This was a great answer. It's fascinating, like you said. People convolute and say, "Oh, I'm in HR.
Hmm.
I just take care of experiences," but that's just a very minute part of the whole value chain. Again, double clicking on a few more things you mentioned, Akash. You said, and it's a good one, right? How, that you move between roles, right? You
Hmm.
experience roles within a company.
Hmm.
Now, in real life, that's a little difficult
Yeah.
because if you're working in one thing, how do you transition out?
Hmm.
Let's say you're an HRBP, you want to go
Hmm.
to TA,
Hmm.
HRBP, the example you gave. Again, very quick. I know there's no one fit answer for it,
Hmm.
but what are the best practices you would deploy, you would advise for somebody, let's say every 2 years wanting to go to different roles within the people function
Within the same organization or
within
within
the same
different?
organization.
Within same organization. Okay. So first and foremost, there is a buzzword, I would say, flowing in the market that's called accountability, right? Everybody's talking about people should have accountability, people should have accountability and stuff like those. But accountability is not one way street. For the people to be accountable, you also need to give them that authority to have accountability, right? Now, there can be a lot of ways to go about it, right? In my experience, I worked with very larger organizations and very smaller organizations as well. So for large organizations, you have internal job postings and stuff like those, wherein you work on something on the sides, you try to learn wherever you want to transition into, right? You do capstone projects, you do different courses and stuff like those, and then you move on the next probably role via IJP. You go ahead, you give interviews, and you get selected on that role, and you move on. The another way is, which is probably my favorite way, is to start working for a startup, right?
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
and not for the glory of it. See, a lot of people try to work at startups for the glory of it that it brings. That hey, we are building world-changing, stuff. So this has actually created a void as well. So now people either want to work for smaller startups, therein we can be the founding members, or else they want to work for likes of Google and Apple.
Hmm.
Right? There is no middle ground. So the companies that are in middle ground are facing this challenge of talent because of just this. Right. But I would always recommend to try and work with organizations that are not at their founding member stage and are not as big, like companies with 100, 200 people. Why is because these companies have gotten off, at least like they have already taken off.
Hmm.
Now, if you look at a rocket, the propulsion is not the difficult part. Taking it off the ground is not difficult part. Shooting up in the stratosphere is the difficult part, right? So that is where these organizations are that have 100, 200 people in them. When you work for them, they are dying to give the accountability to people that want it, right? So you work for an organization like that and go and try your hand firsthand on exploring different verticals, trying to help, just go ahead and offer help. But like it's said in aircrafts, before you help others, help yourself.
Hmm.
So
Help
first of
yourself.
all, go in, do whatever you have been hired for, and then go ahead and offer help. That's probably one of the best ways to go about it.
Yeah, yeah, that's the same thing I tell people. Just people tell me, should I join a young startup? I tell them, I mean, at the point of your career, you'll have to take a decision. But like you said, post Series A, I think good place to be, right? That's where your function gets slightly more valued because you're looking to hire well and keep well, right? And you're not always facing an existential runway crisis, right? Yeah, cool. Again, few more double clicks, man, because there's a lot to unpack there. You spoke of giving examples, which is bang on, right? Like in our people
Mhm.
function, and I'll ask more questions on this
Mhm.
later. One of the best ways, the best interviews I've taken is just examples, right? Otherwise it becomes very fluff and anecdotal, right? And theory and all that jazz, right? One thing here,
Mhm.
let's say someone who's a fresher, right,
Mhm.
slash intern just coming
Mhm.
in, uska to hai nahi, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
I have a way I ask them, but I would love your take. What do you do in these situations?
See, when I say you have to give examples in an interview, it doesn't has to be from your work ex.
Hmm.
It can be anything at all.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
I'm sitting down for hiring an intern, right? I'm talking to someone who's a fresher, has never done it. I would try to learn from them what all did in college. I mean, if it is someone who just went to the college, got these days people get 10 CGPA, which is actually mind-boggling to me because I was an average student. So I'll always go back and I don't care how much did you score, to be honest, because I know that my majority of the learnings during the college time came from what I did a part of my coursework, not as a part of it, but a part of it, right? So again, going back to my first statement, as examples do not have to be from your personal experience. It has to be from your professional experience. It has to be from your personal experiences. As an example, if I want to hire, let's say, a recruiter, right, who's a fresher, I'll keep on saying recruiter again and again because that's where my salt is.
That's
So
fair.
I'll ask them that, can you talk about an example from your college days wherein you convinced your band of group or boys or girls or whoever you are friends with your group to do something that they were not willing to do.
Hmm.
How did you do that? That talks about approach, because as a recruiter, one of the difficult parts of the job is convincing people to join your organization when they have other opportunities and other offers in hand, right? This gives a flow that how much is this person going to over and above, or has that knack of selling. Recruitment is selling, right? So how much of knack they have selling in what they believe is right.
So the answer you're looking for is not fluff. It's reality ki they
Yeah,
have achieved something, how they've done it.
correct, absolutely.
Got it. This segment was super helpful because a lot of, and I'm sure out of the 37,000, 50% would be freshers, right?
Yeah,
Who keep asking
I
like,
mean
how do I
70%, I guess.
of course, and it bodes well, right? I mean, we also at the company that I work for,
Hmm.
pretty much 80% of our hires are from campuses, right? And the ones who are the best are the ones who actually have done a lot during their college days, and they come on the
Hmm.
interview and they only talk of that,
Yeah,
right? And just like you, I look at the CGPA, but CGPA is probably 20%.
correct.
I've seen so many people come and say, I am this, I have got 10 CGPA. Like, first of all, yeah, I'm like, what the how do you get 10? But anyway, 9 point something doesn't impress me, right?
Hmm.
It's what you've done. If you just coasted through your college life, right, and only studied, great, but depends on which function you're coming for, right? But somebody who's probably got an 8 and sort of led their all these teams and all the
Hmm.
co-curricular activities, done bunch of stuff,
Hmm.
written on the side. Like I'm particularly sort of fascinated by people who at a very young age start writing on LinkedIn, start
Yeah,
putting their thoughts out, making a lot of contribution on Git. Those things matter a lot. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure probably you also see those things. All the things that you do
absolutely.
apart from work. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it might sound a little funny, but I am actually a bigger fan of tier three and tier four colleges as compared to tier one, tier two colleges. Couple of reasons behind it is number one, if you look at tier one, tier two colleges like IITs or IIMs for that matter, even though I've taken quite a few sessions with IIT students, right? Like with IIT Jodhpur and NIT Tiruchi and couple of different colleges, right? They know that they are from IIT, right? Which brings in a lot of attitude, right? I'm not saying every this is bad or that is good and stuff like those, but I'm saying that if you are a startup organization, right, which is still figuring out its own stuff, then getting people from IIT can be a lot of it's definitely a pro. You are bringing in best of the best, but then it's also a lot of burden, because you need to keep them engaged. They wouldn't go out of their way to stay engaged. But if you look at someone from tier 3, tier 4 college, they want something, right? And I'm not talking about every Tom, Dick and Harry. I'm talking about the people that
The
actually want to
best.
do stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
When you look at tier 3, tier 4 college, they realize that they might not have done good in studies, right? So they might have to work a little harder than the ones that actually put more of effort in studying. To me, basically, someone going to college is nothing more than a loyalty that they gave in 4 years, right?
Mm.
Consistently going to the college for 4 years, it's nothing more than the fact that did something that you committed on that you'll do at the beginning of the first year. Otherwise, else everything else doesn't matter. Then it's all about experiences. You'll get the best stories from these students. I don't know if this will look good or not, but I definitely ask people when I'm interviewing an intern. I definitely ask their stories, their story with their friends when they're wasted, right?
Mm.
Or their stories from probably the next tapri or chai wala that was next to their college. Those are the most funny stories, but they give you the flavor of who this person is.
I'm asking that next time.
Yeah, try that. It will be fun. The interview will become fun.
Okay, since you've hit that thread, let's take a segue. We'll come back to the more serious stuff. Some examples, man. I'm sure you've done millions of interviews. What are the funniest questions you've asked, questions you've heard, and some of the funniest interviews you've taken?
So I'll give you one funny and one emotional so that we keep the balance intact. So first I'll give you the emotional one, right? So I was actually interviewing this guy. I wouldn't take the name and the name of the college that the guy came from. I was actually interviewing this guy who was sitting, and this was winters. This was winters of January, and this guy was from a college out of Northeast. So it's already cold, right? And I asked this particular, and there was a lot of background noise coming from his end when I was interviewing him. Actually, this was also a moment that started that 37,000 wala journey. This was actually the breakthrough moment. So I asked him to, like move away, like because there's a lot of background noise, and he was wearing like 2 3 layers. I was very confused. So I asked him that if you're feeling so cold, why don't you turn off whatever fan or cooler you have at the end? And he told me that he could not. And I was very young in my career. This was probably in 2012 or 2013 when we just started off, when I just started off in my career. You have a little bit of ego when you're interviewing at that young age, right?
Mm.
So I was
Yeah.
like, what the hell? So I said, then you have to move away from that particular fan because I cannot hear you properly. There's a lot of background noise coming in. He told me I cannot. And I was like, I'm going to reject this straight out. I wanted to ask you what happened. Why? So he told me that his father used to own a electric shop, right? Which was a very small electric shop, and they used to like repair fans over there, right? So not enough money. So he was using a laptop that someone gave to his father after their kids were done with it, and it was not working. So his father, being an electrician, he was able to repair it a little bit and hand it over to them. And this guy was, if I move away of the fan or close or shut off the cooler, what it will do is it my laptop will heat out and it will shut down in between. So I know I'm feeling cold right now, but I have to do this other, and I cannot afford a laptop. And this guy, if I talk about his resume and his experiences, I mean, he was a fresher, but he had gotten scholarships from German colleges to come and do research. He was a mechanical engineering student. He had gotten scholarships from various colleges in German to come and do research for them, and he did that in his summer break. So he did not went out partying, he did that, which was very inspirational to me, especially someone who was not good at studies, that people are going so above and beyond when they don't have the means to the end, right? This was where I started this, and I decided that I want to help these people out, prepare them for interviews and stuff. So the 37,000 people that I talk about a lot, I've not charged a single penny from a single of them. It has always been free of cost, and it is always forever going to be free of cost. I'm never going to charge a single penny from anyone for it. So now the funny part, because just to lighten up the mood. Now there was this guy. I asked him. He looked like a brute. Pretty big in size and stuff. I asked him, "Did you beat up anyone in the college?" Right? And this guy was, "No, sir. I've never." And I was like, I can tell you did just by the look of your tie, right? The way that you have your tie till here in an interview. I can tell by the look of it. And this guy was like, no, 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 sir, I've not. So I asked him, all right, fine, can you tell me a little bit about what you have, learned so far? Or what have you prepared? Forget about me. I'm not going to ask any question. I'm going to ask from whatever you have prepared. And this guy talked about a subject, right, from engineering itself, that I've studied this subject as, and the subject name was engineering drawing. I asked him why, and he was like, sir, this is my final year. ED is a subject that we study in the first year. I failed all 4 years in ED. If I don't pass it in this time, I'm going to get a semester back, and even if I get an offer, I will probably never be able to join anywhere. I asked him, I mean, why were you not able to clear it? He was like, I don't know, sir, I study everything but I still fail. Like, okay. Because I'm also an engineer. I was also a bachelor's of engineering in automobile engineering. So ED was one of our subjects as well. So I asked him that, okay, can you tell me the differences between 2D, 3D, and 1D, right? Because you have studied that only for all 4 years, 8 semesters. That. So he was like, sir, I'll give you an example. I like, okay, please go ahead. So he gave me an example that if let's say there is an ant, it's walking in a straight line. That's 1D. If it's walking in a zigzag fashion, it's 2D. And exact statement from him was, and this was the, now if you think about it, it's very accurate. It is 1D, 2D, and 3D, right? If you think
Mm.
about it, it is 1D, 2D, and 3D, right? And I was not a good engineer, so I was not sure if that was correct answer or not, right? So I went out, so I asked him to give me 5 minutes. I Googled it, and apparently it was correct answer, right? But the difference, just the way that he answered that question, I know that he might not have passed the exam for 4 years, but then again, we know how, you know,
Mm.
terrible our
Exactly.
education system is.
Yeah.
But the answer was so accurate that I went to my management. I told him that I don't know about others, but you should hire this guy. Because the way that he thinks, that the way that he can perceive things is very creative. And we were hiring for recruiters. We were a staffing company, so we were hiring for recruiters. So this was a tier 3 tier. We hired him And when we used to listen to the type of calls that he used to take, right, as a recruiter, I don't think I've seen better calls in my life. No script whatsoever, no script. It will be such a random conversation with a candidate. Back then we used to follow a lot of scripts, especially in 2011, 2012, 2013, these years. We used to be boggled on how he, like, confirms a candidate. But then we realized that because he's like this, he's able to make friends with the candidate, which actually today, if you look at my recruitment process, it's very influenced by that. Now I also try to make friends with my candidates. So even though he was a fresher, I had about 3 4 years of experience. I learned from him. And terrible student, luckily got passed, at the last attempt of his ED exam. Terrible student, but the example that he gave stood out, and it showed it in the performance of his experience. Like when he started doing recruitment, he was such an out of box guy that the candidates were not prepared for the kind of negotiation he was doing with them. We were not prepared for it.
So Akash, let's stay on that thread. Again, I know we are sort of taking a lot of segues, but that's great for the folks listening in. Let's stay on this thread of the recruiters, right?
Mhm.
Recruiter, TA, right?
Mhm.
Let's generalize. Everyone
Mhm.
is in the hiring, in the people acquisition function. What are the traits? And why I'm asking is I'm sort of taking away from this guy, right? What did this guy do that made him a standout, a great recruiter? And I'm assuming those are some of the
Mhm.
characteristics, what do you call it, competencies
Mhm.
that a great recruiter has.
See, I've hired a lot of recruiters in my life, a lot. And one thing that matters the most to me when I'm hiring recruiters is how personalized they can make the entire setup. See, a lot of people, when they hire recruiters, they will be like, hey, I want a tech recruiter. Do you know what is Python development? Or do you know what is AWS? Do you know what is XYZ technology? See, a recruiter is a recruiter, right? You give him Python developer role. He doesn't know jack shit about Python, right? I'm sorry for my French. But he doesn't knows anything
Everything
about
works.
Python, right? You give him a construction architect, he doesn't knows about it. He's not an architect, or she is not an architect, right? She's not a Python developer that they need to be a master of that technology, or whatever role they're hiring for, right? Having some knowledge always helps, but even if they don't have any knowledge, if they know recruitment, that's about it. Now, the core of recruitment, a lot of recruiters, if you look at today, and it is very unfortunate that if you look at staffing companies, it's even worse. They'll pick up the phone, they don't care what you're saying. It sounds like a call center. Hi, Ranak, my name is XYZ. I am calling from you from XYZ role. The company, I have XYZ role, which needs X and Y and Z skills. Are you interested? Dude, I'm looking for a job. I'll say yes if you even if you brought me something that I've never done in my life. If you ask me like that, right? So what I'm talking about is people, sorry, recruiters these days, they don't dive in with a candidate. They don't try to understand the candidate. They try to sell their role right off the bat. Either they'll oversell it, or they will undersell it, or they'll sound like a robot. And
Mm.
these are the recruiters, I would say, should be scared of ATSs, and should be scared of
AI.
technology or
Yeah.
AI coming into the picture, because that's what an AI can do, right?
Yep.
As a human, we need to bring in human efforts within recruitment. Personalizing your call, building a relationship with a candidate, building a rapport with
Mm.
a candidate, making sure that the candidate knows that you are not, trying to push the candidate to join you, but you are trying to help them make the best decision about their careers, right? Which also involves, now this might sound a little controversial, but it also involves telling a candidate no, that you should not work for us, even if they are 100% fit from the skill standpoint. Why I'm saying this is, a lot of times the moment a recruiter sees a candidate who's like 100% fit for the skill sets, you need X, he has X, you need Y, he has Y, everything picture perfect. They get so baffled by it that they'll offer their kidneys to the candidate,
Mm.
just for them to join, right? But they should know that even if these candidates come in, and if they're not culture fit, if they're not fitting in, they're not flexible enough to adopt themselves basis on your organizational needs,
They
they'll
won't stay for
eventually
very
leave.
long.
Either they'll leave, or they'll just write bad things about your organization at a later
Mm.
stage, which
Yeah.
is more costlier than losing out on that candidate. So a lot of recruiters don't do this, but I think saying no is equally important.
Mm. Okay, another double click on that. I don't know if there's a playbook for this, but one of the big jobs of, let's say, mostly senior recruiters would be salary negotiations, right?
Mhm.
Now, for context, there are some salary negotiations which just go by the book, right? You have your compa, all of it, right? You have to bring in this person at this stage. There's no negotiation, right? But let's talk startups. Startups may like you basically negotiate. What is your playbook, rule book, guidelines that you follow when you're doing salary negotiations across the spectrum? And this is more tricky, more at a let's say 3+, 4+ year experience
Okay.
candidates.
Okay. So, negotiations, right? It's one of my favorite topics. I can talk about it for hours. So, what happens is people, when I'm saying people, please by default, it means recruiters at this point of
Sure,
time.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, people these days do not understand that there's a difference between bargaining and negotiating. So, what people are doing is bargaining. How? मैं इतना दे सकता हूँ. Right? If the money is less, the flexibility is more, or something like that, right? Like it's a whole package of stuff, right? Majority of the recruiters these days, what they are doing is bargaining. They switch off their mind spaces the moment they get into a negotiation conversation. First of all, people need to understand that negotiation starts even before you make the first call to the candidate. I'll come to that. Just wanted to leave you there, right? That's one. Second is when you start doing negotiations, people will talk only about money. The candidate wants money. They are allowed to do that, but you are a recruiter. You might or might not have the money. So you need to make sure that you sell the entire package, and it has to be a negotiation. It cannot you're not buying fish. It cannot be just 5 lakhs, 6 lakhs, 2 lakhs, 8 lakhs, 9 lakhs. Takes away the entire flavor of negotiation. Now coming to what I just said, that negotiation starts even before you make the first call. One of the things that have really worked for me always is doing very good research, and not just on our role but also on the competitors. So what I'll do is whenever I'll join a new organization, I'll sit down with the hiring managers and I'll ask them which are the companies wherein you think are the best competitors, where you find the best talent. And I'll make a note of it. That's one. Second is once I have that kind of an information, I will write down the name of all the companies that they have mentioned to me. Third is I'll go on Glassdoor and Ambition Box and look at the reviews of all of these companies, the bad ones. What is it that they are doing wrong? Right. Compare it to what are the things that we are doing good. Even before I'm getting onto a call. Right. Compare, and let's say I see any X company, which is a competitor to my company, they do not give work life balance or they do not have flexible environments. And we have very flexible environments. We allow people to go from work from home, work from anywhere, stuff like those. I have got one selling point right in front of me. Right, the moment, and if I have done my research prior to starting to work on that particular role, more often than not I'll get candidates coming from similar companies. If not, if any new company comes in, the moment I see the resume and go on Glassdoor and quickly read the reviews, takes 30 seconds. When you're starting off, it will take you 2-3 minutes, but not more than that. And once you're good at it, it takes about 30 seconds. I'll note it down that this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. Not just one company, but probably 2-3 companies. When I go on a call with that particular candidate, my entire script will change basis on the type of company that they have worked for and what are the negative aspects of that company. So I'm not trying to sell my company. I'm trying to tell you what you have not got in your life and what I can give you, right? Which builds out various, which builds out a situation that people automatically gets way more interested about the opportunity that you have to offer. That is one. Now, rerouting it to the role. Whenever I'm calling a candidate, I never call up a candidate and tell them that I have a job for you, which is a very good match to you. Whenever I call a candidate, I will be very precise about the fact that I have multiple roles with me, wherein your experience matches to multiple one of them. And I don't want to bore you out talking about every single role here because your resume looks good and I'm happy in putting you out. But the hiring manager for all five roles is same. So I cannot submit you for all five roles. I want you to tell me what you have done in your career and what is it that you want to do next. What you have done is important, but what do you want to do next is way more important. So be more specific about it, which helps, which number one doesn't allow the candidate to lie about their experiences because I've not told them what I'm looking for. Instead, I get to know a lot of information about them, of what they're willing to do and what they have done. Once I have that information, I'll go back, I have one role. I've looked at the resume. I know this guy is a match. So whatever he's going to tell me is going to match my role. It's just I'm not giving him or her a scope to lie. I'll note it down. I'll take it to my hiring manager, and not just with, hey, I found a resume. I'll say, this is a resume, and this is why he's a good fit, because this is what he wants to do. That's why he'll not just like the role, but he'll stay for a longer time as well. He or she'll stay for a longer time as well. Once that is set apart, one of the things that I missed out is I also do whenever I'm sitting down with the hiring manager to get the details of the roles. I'll ask them, can you please name about 4 or 5 people from your team that you think would be able to do this
Yeah,
job
good pick.
fantastically, right? So that I could go back and do a little bit of research on their backgrounds and could find candidates on it. That's why I said in the beginning that there's a difference between a talent acquisition guy and a recruiter. Now, when you have done the speaking with the candidate, right? You have told him about the role. You have made him very excited about the role because that is what he wants in terms of the style of the company, in terms of the type of the company you are, the type of role it is. Now, another mistake that a lot of candidates, a lot of recruiters do is they oversell their companies. They wouldn't stop talking about all the good things that they are doing. What I do is I'll also tell them the challenges that they might face. Like I'll tell them that, hey, you know what, we have amazing flexibility. You work from anywhere, we don't care, but it will be a little difficult for people who are not very result oriented. Why? Because we are very focused towards the fact that, if you have to get this done, you get this done. We are fine with wherever you are working, but even if it takes 9 hours, more than 9 hours a day, it takes more 9 hours a day, right? So you don't just give them positive parts, but you also give a slighter view of the difficult things about your organization, which builds a trust between a recruiter and the candidate. Next up is, once you have done that as well, the candidates very well know about your organization and about the things that are going to go there. Now, when you're entering the last stage, where let's say the candidate has cleared all the interviews, everything is good, you want to hire this particular candidate, a lot of recruiters will go and lie down in front of the candidate that, boss, you are everything. I want you. The hiring manager has said yes and stuff
Yeah,
like those.
it's a big problem.
Don't do that. What I'll do is, the moment a candidate goes into that second level or third level of interview, I'll start finding backups right then and there itself, and have a couple of people lined up. And once that part is also over, and let's say I have to go into an offer, I'll go with not a mindset that I have to get this guy, but a mindset that if you're coming, well and good. If you're not, I have about two more candidates that are willing to accept this offer and join today. So what it hits that psychology of a person, that if they're getting something too easily, they don't
Mm,
consider it
yeah,
being worth. And if there is something that they have chances to lose out on, then they realize
then
that
they'll
what
go.
worth that
Yeah,
particular role brings
yeah,
into. It's just like breakups, right? Like, once the person is gone, you realize, and stuff like this. Once the role is gone, you realize, and stuff like this, right? So you go in. Before you talk about money, you talk about the things that you're going to give them. And I'm not talking about benefits or the money. You know what negative things they have experienced in their life. One of the things that helps me into my negotiation is a very simple question. Talk about two things that you absolutely loved about your last organization, and two things that you thought could be improved, which
okay.
tells us what is it that he likes and what it is that he hates about the organization, right? More often than not, there could be generic answers, but you don't go away with generic answers. When they say they give good growth opportunities, what is growth opportunities to you? Is it hikes? It is position? Is it responsibilities? What is it for you? So you ask a lot of questions, open-ended questions, to get the answer to this particular question itself, or the two things that you like and hate. As ask so many questions that you could write down the person's personality by the end of the answer. Once you are there and you're getting into negotiation, you don't start out with money. You start out with, hey, we spoke about the entire role. We spoke about this and this and this. I have three candidates that the hiring manager wants to offer, and the role is one. But you're the first person that I'm calling. Why? Because I believe that a part of the skills, you're a very good culture fit to the organization as well. Because the things that you want is the things that we give, and the things that we want is other things that you bring to the table. So it's a very perfect match. Now, you said that you do not enjoy this, we are giving this. You said that you enjoy this, we give this. You said that you don't enjoy this, we don't do this. You give them a lay out the entire conversation that you have had with them since the beginning. Having said that, I remember you said that your expectations was X, but The amount that I have right now is this. But even before you get into that, whenever you are telling them something, let's say you have a remote job, you ask them, what does a remote job means to you? It means a lot, I'll get to work from anywhere, I love traveling, blah blah. No, no, no. What does it means in terms of numbers? If I say that you'll have to leave money on the table to get that, how much money are you willing to leave? Get them to talk about numbers. Once you have gotten them to talk about numbers, it becomes very easy. So you said that you can leave 5 lakhs for a remote job. You said you can leave 2 lakhs for this. You said you can leave 1 lakh for this. Total, it's 8 lakhs. Your expectation was 16. I'm not asking you to come at 8. I'm asking you to come at 13. You're leaving out just 3 lakhs. You're still making 5 lakhs more. How does that sound to you? So you build an entire story around the candidate. And when you do that, you generally tend to build up such a rapport with the candidate that you'll still have backouts. I'm not saying you'll never have backouts. You'll still have backouts. You cannot control people. Sometimes all they care about is money, but it's better to lose these candidates than getting them in. If it's just money and nothing else matters to them, then it's better to let them go.
Got it. This was amazing. Thank you. One double click on that again. So this is unfortunate, but one this is one part of the problem,
Yeah.
getting them to sign the offer. A bigger problem is getting them to join.
Correct.
Is there anything you do differently or advice that you have in this 1 month, 2 month period?
So I look at people experience, and I kind of become their elder brother or the younger brother during the conversation itself, right? I introduce Hindi in the first one or two calls itself. I don't want to look cool in front of them. Doesn't helps out at all. I want to be someone who they can trust, right? Number one. Number two, always have this in your mind that they're going to back out today. Every morning when you wake up, have this in your back of your mind that this guy will back out today. Because then you are not taken aback, you're you know, you're already prepared for it. Number one. Number two, you always keep backups, irrespective of, even if the candidate is waiting to join, they have resigned and everything, you keep backups. Always. Number three is
And by
be
the way, just to be clear, the backups doesn't mean that you give 3, 4 offers.
no, no,
They
no,
are
no.
interview stages.
Interview
Yeah.
stages.
Got it.
Interview stages.
Yeah.
Keep them in interview stages. Number three is talk about their personal lives as much as you can. As an example, when you speak to this particular candidate, you have offered them, they have said that yeah, yeah, I'm going to resign and stuff like those, right? I do this. It might sound very, not very professional, but what I do is I keep track of their LinkedIn resumes. Are they still updating it? And because I have made
LinkedIn,
sure,
Naukri.
sorry,
Naukri
yeah,
also, no?
Naukri. I'm so sorry, Naukri.
LinkedIn,
If they
yeah.
have recently updated it, and now that, and why it works out for me is because I made them my friend in the second call itself. Hey, bhai,
Hmm.
क्या बोल रहे हो यार? नहीं, this ये थोड़ी ना होता है. You talk about different stuff. Even for a female candidate, you make them your allies, your friends, right? Talk about their family life. As an example, if I see someone who's who have pretty good experience into one particular industry, you tell them that, hey, I was always fascinated by this industry. Can you tell me a little bit about that? If I leave this job tomorrow, I can go into this industry. Can you tell me how do I make it through? Make people feel special. Once they start feeling special, make them your friends. Offer them help, without even them asking for it. How do you do that is, hey, I know that we have offered you, but I still want the best for you always. So I saw this and this that you could do better on your LinkedIn. Just wanted to tell you that. Offer help, offer assistance. When I'm talking to people, if I hear any dog barking from the background or something, I'll always talk about their dogs. If I hear a baby crying, I'll always talk about those babies, that who are they, where they, like what's the name and stuff like those. So basically I try to find personal anecdotes to make that friendship happen. Once that has happened, then I try to convert it in more of a, in a way wherein so one of the things that I'll do is, hey, there is 1 month for you to left to join. I've gotten this role. It pays a referral fees of this much. Do you have someone that you can send?
Okay.
Let's say they send a candidate, and this candidate makes out to the offer stage. Now you have another hooking point for him, and that is the referral bonus once they join in. And you'll be like, I know that you're not an employee right now, but once you join in, I'll put this referral in your name. That will help you make that this amount of money as well on top of it. ask for referrals. That helps, bolstering that connection. And if, let's say, I am in a network of HR groups, right, or folks, right, and I see any role, that I got to know that, their spouse or their brother is looking for a role which is into this, I'll go on a lookout myself in my network to check if they have, if any of my friends have any such roles. I'll come back to them, hey, you know what, my friend has a role for your brother, for your spouse. Send out your resume. Let me have a word with them. Let me try to get them an interview. So you offer help. The more help you offer, the more opportunities you create for them, the better are your chances of getting them in.
And from a tactical company standpoint, like, do you do anything like bringing the managers, team connect, dinners, all
Yes,
of that?
I think that has become a standard,
That's true.
action for almost every organization. They have these buddies that will connect like 2 3 months, like, sorry, two three
Yeah.
weeks prior to their joining. Or you will have them, if you have a very fancy office. We did this a couple of times as well. We had a very fancy office at one of my previous organization. We'll call up people for a coffee to show around, and you have like foosball and stuff, people playing those. It acts, it stimulates it a little bit. But to be honest, at the end, money matters a lot, right? The kind of money that, if I offered someone 30 lakhs and they're getting 50 lakhs, there's no way they're coming in, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So you also need to be prepared to say no at the right time.
Yeah.
Saves your integrity.
In an ideal scenario, that should never happen.
Yeah,
Like, you've offered X and they're getting 2X. That means,
I
something.
have seen those experiences. I was working with a company. It was a cloud, for like cloud service provider organization, and we offered a lady. She was making around 15 lakhs or something. We offered her
Engineering, yeah?
25. Yeah, yeah, cloud engineer.
तो वो engineers में कुछ भी होता है.
Yeah, we offered her 25, and 3 days before she was joining us, she got an offer of 40, 40. So 300x. So you cannot do anything about it.
And not too proud of this, but it happened to me also. I was supposed to join somewhere and I got and I didn't join for the money. I knew the person, right? It just happened to be that the company's benchmarks and all of that were good. So
But if you're
yeah,
getting 300x, you should join. If you're not joining 3x,
yeah.
then that's stupid, basically. I mean, why would you not?
Unless there are flags, there
Yeah,
are
unless there are
companies who
flags.
do poaching and all of that, and
Yeah,
they just take you to screw with you, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, I think this was a long ass segue, man. But this was amazing. I'll come back to our initial part that you're talking about, right? For people function in interviews. I'll leave with one last question. And this is where, again, super important. I know folks get it wrong. Is you're not just evaluating, again, I'm coming from the lens of a recruiter.
Hmm.
You're not just evaluating on their hard skills, you're also looking at the soft skills. What do you look at, right? Especially, again, I'm talking broad based HR. My next question will be soft skills for TA also. What are those soft skills
Hmm.
that you are looking at when you're doing your round of hiring?
While hiring HR folks, right? See, people don't realize this, but HR is a very pressure focused job, right? Because the employee abuses you, the management abuses you. You're like the kind of punching bag for everyone, right?
Yeah,
Whoever
LinkedIn
is.
abuses
So
you,
yeah,
everyone.
you're like the mom of the house, right? Like everybody comes, like even the kids will come out and shout at you. Nobody has the guts to go to dad, like the upper management, so they'll go and they'll shout at mom, right? It's a very similar kind of a relationship in the office as well. So I try. I mean, there is one specific bit in every interview when I'm doing HR interviews, and I'm giving away my secret. So I hope, you know, any of your viewers, when they look at this, they don't, and if I'm interviewing them, they don't underpass it right away. So I make sure that I create a bit in between where I put a lot of pressure on, a lot of
Mean by
pressure.
that?
I mean, I'll talk about any situation with them. Okay. Let's say that, hey, let's say we are implementing a new process, right? Let's role play this. And we are going to implement a new, let's say, solution or a new policy, right? And you have to go ahead and tell this to the mid-level management who will be taking care of next level of employees, right? How do you go ahead and do it, right? And let's say they say this, I go in, I'll talk about data, I'll talk about this, talk about that. And because it's a role play, I tell them initially that it'll be role play and it'll be a difficult role play. I'll act as a difficult stakeholder, right? And then I start creating that pressure that, no, the data doesn't say this, who said that, no, no, I've been in this industry for so long, how can you tell me I'm wrong, how can you tell me, that the data is wrong? The typical situation that a HR faces. right? And
Yes.
the way that they respond in those difficult situations. This is one example. Another example is, let's do a role play that I didn't got my paycheck at time and I'm mad. I'm crazy mad right now. Let's see what we do. Right? How these people handle these situations is what becomes actually a very big deal breaker or deal maker for.
Yeah, even if people listening in understand this, you can't fake it.
Yeah, you can't
What
fake
you
it.
just said.
Yeah,
It is what it is. It is who you are, right? Either if you've, again, this goes back to experiences and examples, right?
correct.
If ever in life you faced adversity, you'll able to do well. If you have a little bit of empathy, I think empathy is slightly overrated, because too much empathy is also not good, right? It must be balanced empathy.
Yeah, yeah. Empathy
Yeah.
is the new buzzword. Empathy,
But
culture.
yeah, I mean, so Karthik from a previous podcast, he gave a wonderful example or a definition of culture. He's like, culture is what you do every day. Culture is what you
Correct,
preach every day. Culture is who you are every day. You don't, I mean, okay, we talk about it, but then everyone talks about it, prints diaries, and then does the exact opposite thing. You can not talk about it, you can do nothing. But then if
correct,
you just live it every day, that's culture, right? And similarly in
correct,
interviews, mein, people can't
correct.
fake who they are.
Correct, correct, correct. About this culture thing, one of the primest example that I have experienced in my life was I went for an SSB. When I was in the final year of my college, I went for Navy's SSB, right? I
Sorry,
was a
what is
conference out.
SSP?
I don't remember the full form of it, but it's like kind of an interview process to get admitted
Acha,
as an
okay.
officer in the Army, Navy, or Air Force, right? I don't.
Okay, okay.
So I went for an SSB interview. So the way the process happens is, first day when you go there, they take a psychometric test and a group discussion, and they let go of more than, in my batch at least, they let go of more than 95% people in the first day. And then there are 4 days of interview that happens after that. 4 days or 3 days, I don't recall it exactly. It happened in 2015, like 9-10 years ago. But I think there are 3 or 4 days of event wherein they do a lot of psychometric evaluations, they do a lot of physical evaluations, they do a lot of different scenario based evaluations, right? I was, and the final day there is a conference. The thing is called conference, right? Which is like a maximum 2 minutes or 3 minutes interview. I don't know how they do this now. I'm talking about again 2015. Mine ended for like 2 minutes, in which they'll ask you to come inside a room. You'll sit in front of like 5, 6 officers. Mine conference was on 26th of January, so I don't know if because of 26th January they were dressed like that, like this, or do they dress like this in conferences always? So they were sitting in front of me, and they asked you a very basic question: How was your stay? How was your experience with this? And they'll let you go. That's about it. It's like 1 or 2 minutes. It's a proper interview, and then they'll ask you to, okay, go ahead and set. In our case, there were almost, on the first day there were about 400 people, right? On the conference day, sorry, after first day we were only 20 people that were left out of 400 people, and out of the 20 people only 4 were shortlisted. I was not one of them, right? So I got conference out. It's called conference out when you're out on the last day. This culture thing is what I saw there the most. These officers, I mean, huge respect for them, be it from Navy, Army, or Air Force. They live the way that they project
Hmm,
themselves. So,
they do.
like discipline, waking up at a certain time, doing certain activities. Even when they eat, you can see their. I'm talking about officers, that we used to see, around that base itself. Even the way that they eat, they talk to you, the way that they walk, it's all embodied in a way that you cannot comprehend, you cannot fake it, right? So the primest example of culture is probably our own, Army, Navy, or Air Force, for that matter, our armed forces. They embody on every day basis, even on the worst day they embody it, right? And that's what culture is, right? Culture is not what you do on your best days with your organization or with your team, but actually what you do on your worst days as well is probably what
Absolutely.
builds it up.
Yeah, yeah. I'm fascinated by army. Like I really want to get someone from the army. And I know a couple of people who are now in the people function,
Mhm.
right? The I think the best culture, like you said, best culture interview questions should ideally be just model what they are doing, right?
Yes,
There
yes.
was beach may I remember, I think 2-3 years back, a lot of talk on how army gets their culture side right. What can we do? there was a lot of debate on that. I don't remember, it was on LinkedIn or Twitter. What broadly came out was, there's some things you can replicate, some things you just can't, right? Because it's so
Absolutely.
intrinsic, right? Like, I forget the context. It was, I think, about attrition or something, right? Because army means zero attrition. You don't, I mean, not zero,
Yeah,
right? And a lot of army folks came in and said that it is who you are. It is, like you said, it is me, right? I will never leave that. Versus at a company, you
correct.
can never ever bring that up. Ab kitna hi try it out. Let's see. I hope someday I can bring in someone from the army
I can
and tell
refer a
them,
few. I know a few people. I can refer them to you.
please, please, please do. I would love to sort of just understand in great detail from them, because I've been fascinated. I've worked with a few. You can spot them from a mile away. Like, you,
Absolutely.
even if they don't tell you, well, like, "Hi, it's army hai."
Absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Like I said, it's what you embody. It's not who you say you are going to be or who you try to be. It's, the basic personality, you cannot change it. And that's why I believe that, be it any role interview, if you are able to ask for examples, be it interns to CXOs level, if you're able to ask for examples, that's where you get the
Hmm.
real flavor of what the person has done in their life.
Okay, so we probably have like 5 or 6 people who are still remaining listening in by now. But I want to come back to something that I wanted to ask you. You've we'll skip why you do what you do, right? I mean, we'll put it on the show notes because it's amazing what you do, right? Mentoring so many people, and they need it, right? I wish people do it at a larger scale. Wish people who've learned so much give back, because our function needs it, right? I try to do it from a tech and whatever perspective, because I've seen, like, I don't come from the function, but I've landed up in HR, and I've seen how backward we were with tech
Hmm.
adoption and all of that. So I try, but you do it broadly at a function level, and I wanted to understand, like, 37,000 is a crazy, a massive number, right? I mean, mentoring and getting to know so many people, just a very meta level, because I think that will apply to a lot of young people listening in. What were the biggest learnings
Hmm.
for you,
Hmm.
mentoring so many people? Particularly, I'm assuming these are people who are interested in the HR and people function.
Okay, it involves people from various backgrounds, right? Like people
Okay.
coming from different technologies as well, right? Freshers as well, people from HR function as well. It involves a lot of different people. There are a couple of things that I have learned. One is, people are extremely powerful. I mean, I cannot emphasize on this enough. Is that if a person has the will to do it, there's no extent to which people can go. It's just about having the will and the discipline to be able to implement that will.
Okay.
So one of the reasons that I do this, and I still do this, and I don't charge money for it, and I don't want to charge money for it, is because I never had a mentor when I was in this phase, right? I have mentors now. I have quite a few mentors now. I have about 2 3 mentors now, and I realize what is the importance of a mentor, right? And irrespective of how much experience do you have, 1 year, 2 year, 25 year, 30 years, you cannot replace a mentor with any form of book or
Hmm.
anything else in the world,
True.
right? So I understand the importance of it, and I understand that if I'm able to change, probably the life of even one person, it changes the life of a lot more. Because if
Hmm.
they see the value in mentoring, they a lot of times go out and help out their friends and help out someone else. Number one. Number two is, there is a selfish reason behind it. I love people. I love everything about people. I know that there is a lot of bad thing going in the world as well, but if you point people in the right direction, there is magic that happens there. So what I learn from them is incomprehensible. I cannot put it in terms of money at all, ever. Like I said, why I started this was this kid who, was sitting in front of a cooler and doing this, right? And he was not in a top tier in university and still doing things that probably an IIT guy might not have ever even thought of doing, right? So people are really very powerful. People have a lot of potential. If you are able to actually guide them through in the right direction, they can do wonders. And you get to learn a lot. I've learned things from kids who have like half of my experience, not half. Even today when I talk to a lot of freshers, kidhar kidhar na kidhar, they'll say something that will stick with you, right? And they wouldn't even realize that they have said it, right? They'll say something and they'll walk off कि हाँ ऐसा तो ठीक नहीं ये ऐसा है. I was self it's a self published book, nothing, like a bestseller or something. It's a very
No,
small
we'll
ebook.
link it. We'll link it in the episode.
For sure. It's a small ebook on how to write resumes. It's for everyone, irrespective of their experiences. They can use that use that piece of ebook to actually sit down and make a resume that will never get rejected. I've put all my entire experience in how to create resumes or read resumes via on that particular platform. It also covers a little bit of LinkedIn as well, but I want to write that would be able to impact more people. One of the ways to become a good writer is by knowing more stories. And there's only so much stories that you can experience in your own life. So when you connect with people, you get to learn more, and then you can probably one day I'll be able to put it down to the paper. But right now I have one book on Amazon. I'll definitely share the link with you.
Lovely. And since you've spoken to so many people, India is very bullish. A whole
Mhm.
ruling parties and everyone is bullish on the demographic dividend. Where are you on that spectrum? Right, because it's these people who are the demographic dividend, right? Who's going to propel the country forward. Where are you on that spectrum? Goods and the bads.
Okay, so I try to stay very apolitical. I am actually very
No,
apolitical.
no,
I
no, no,
don't
not from a political perspective, man. From a, let's say, talent deployed to work perspective.
see, eventually, if you look at the mass amount of people, they want to work and they want to spend their life. They don't want to get into any, flow of the river, basically, that, people are being talking about anything at all, right? There is one particular, and see, India as a country is something that flows with the river, right? 3 months later, they say that no, this is not my cup of tea. They start learning something else because something else came into the picture, right? That is where people like you, me, the others, Karthik, other people that you have spoken with could play very good, very prominent pictures by actually educating people that these flows are always temporary, right? You should be able to look inwards to find your outwards. I mean, you need to look in what you, and that will probably help you in finding what you actually want to do in your life, right? See, I believe in something, and we'll be going a little philosophical on this because I very heavily believe in this. Your emotions should never define your work. You can feel the worst in a day, but you still got to wake up, sit down, and work. Right? I'm not talking about job. I'm not talking about anything. I'm talking about work means doing anything. Right? You cannot dwell on your emotions, and it goes same with this flow of river that I was talking about. You cannot keep flowing with the river. You cannot keep flowing. It's good to having knowledge of anything new that is coming in, but that doesn't mean you go in the flow, right? Like I said, data science, I saw 5 tech companies emerging out of just that we teach data science. The moment it got over, some new technology came in, new tech companies came in, and for them it's just a way to make money. One of the things that I do is whenever someone asks me what certification should I do, I tell them whichever is free. Do not invest money into getting into a certification. I know the coursework might be a little structured, but whatever content they'll give you, you can find the same content
YouTube.
on YouTube, on various platforms. Now, having said that, I have my own courses as well, my paid courses as well, right? But if you really want to invest into money, first of all, get to know that person. If that person is someone that you can look up to and want to become tomorrow. I have taken a couple of courses myself. I'll give you another example of it in another way. I know that, I might be diverting here and there on this, but this is a topic that I'm very passionate about, basically. So there is this guy whose name is Ali Abdal, and one guy whose name is Jay Shetty. I've taken multiple courses from these guys, paid courses, because I look up to them, right? The type of content they put out, the type of information they put out, I actually want to build out something like that, right? For people, for masses, right? So I've taken a lot of courses from them. So to step by step answer this question, number one, people have the habit of flowing with the flow, like you said, right? They are very bullish. They'll go in the direction the sea is traveling. You should have a mindset that doesn't flows with that. That can only happen when you don't do things based on your emotions. You do things based on your discipline. So you're feeling bad, still wake up and go to work. You're feeling sick, wake up and go to work. You feel irrespective of however you are feeling, you just had a breakup, get up and go to work. All right. It should not it should not combine. How you feel and how what you do should never combine. That's why I'm saying that you should not flow with the river. Getting the knowledge is good, but not flowing with the river. So that's second. And third is, like I said, people like yourself, when you're putting out these content, it's very important for people to look into it, because if you do, you'll be able to understand that there is so much more, you know than just a surface level thing. And if you keep flowing with the river, you'll only be at the surface, you'll never be able to get into the depth, right? So that's very important. And like I said, stop flowing with whatever is is around you, and start actually
Mm,
putting out a center somewhere, and focusing on it.
lovely. Well, I'll just add my 2 cents again, because I'll make this into sort of like a short or something. Uh, I'll just add one thing. Again, completely agree with everything you said. Right, those are all spurt moments. Whatever it comes, people love it, get into it, and then the biggest thing is they realize that shit, I don't like it. I don't
Yeah.
love doing this. Right.
Yeah.
The worst thing you can do is live your whole life working on something that you hate.
Yeah.
And the big problem is our country's education. I know it's changing if the
Hmm.
parents' mindsets are changing, but we don't really have an option, right? I mean, I come from a family of CAs, so I became a CA. Even though I was great in maths, I was great in computers.
Hmm.
It's not like my parents forced me, but it's just I became that.
Yeah, I get
But
it.
what happens is folks, they do something and they don't have the courage to come out of it.
Hmm.
MBA becomes your default.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be, right? You can sort of take a step back, not spend 20, 30 lakhs,
Hmm.
start from zero, and find what you love to do, because
Correct.
life is just a lot better to live if you love what you do, right? I love what I'm doing, you love what you're doing, clearly, right? And I think pay equalizes out. People think
Yup.
that,
Correct.
oh, I may not get paid, but doesn't work. If you love what you do, you'll be the top 0.01%, you'll get paid.
Correct. There
And
is a book, a very interesting book by Cal Newport, which the name of the book is "Get So Good They Cannot Ignore You." Something around that name.
mm,
I read it years back. It says following passion is bullshit. You should not follow your passion. You should actually focus on what you're good at, make money out of it, and then follow your passion. Because a hungry stomach will only take you so far on your passion as well. But it's not necessary that it doesn't means you do what you're hating. It means if you'll only be good at something if you actually like it. So
mm,
go ahead, test your skills, do multiple things. I always tell my younger folks, do not get scared of anything, do everything. Go in and do everything that you can think of. That's the only way to figure out what you'll love, what you'll want to do for the rest of your life. And once you
absolutely.
figure it out, then you'll automatically be the number one, the top 1% folks, if you
Yeah.
actually are enjoying it.
Yeah, I think 20s to 30s is the period to taste, right?
Yeah.
Taste multiple things.
Yeah.
That the book is so good they can't ignore you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I haven't read it, but I know what you're talking about. All right, Akash, I'll leave with. I have to ask this one question, right? I'll let that be the last question. And this is something that I'm also a little. I'm myself super interested and worried also at the same time. I was reading this report, right? The India hiring report. 2025-6, they're predicting, or they're saying that there's going to be a 10% increment. So hiring demand is going to be up by 10%, right? So if you have 100 jobs today, there's going to be 110, there's going to be a 10 extra. There's already a lot of jobs. Now that 10% is going to be met by the recruiters mostly. It is the recruiters, TA, people from the acquisition function are responsible for that. Now that's a lot of responsibilities, right? People sort of don't realize it, how much responsibilities. If you can't meet that, your business is not going to work out, right? It's that simple.
Correct. Correct.
Now I want to look at I want to ask this question in an inversion principle. Instead of saying what should they do, from your experience, what are the top things that the recruiters get wrong today, which if you solve automatically, right, then you're getting things right.
Okay, number one is recruiters treat their network as a way to find jobs and not as a way to find referrals. So let's say I have a huge network of recruiters. I'll only reach out to them if I'm looking out for jobs. Majority of
Okay,
them do
that's
this,
what you're saying.
right? What I recommend is always stay in touch with your recruiter friends, because they might have a candidate that didn't fly for their organization but could fly for yours,
Correct.
right? So we see a lot of posts. I run my own community as well of HR folks as well, and majority of the times, and I keep on posting my articles over there, right? And majority of the times I'll see that people will only write a lot of things there when either they are hiring or they are looking out for jobs, right? See, I will not go ahead and help you out if you don't have, some level of rapport, right? So your network is not your job board. Basically, that's what I'm saying, right? Your network is a group of people that could be your friends, right? That could add value to your life, and you can add value to theirs. So the point that I'm trying to cover here with this particular statement is, guys, treat your network as your network, not as a job, please. So that's one thing that I believe that people are doing wrong. Second is, I had a manager, very early in my career, who would say, जितना रेफरल किया है उससे ज्यादा ढिंडोरा पीटो. So basically, what she meant to say is, even if you have paid 5,000 rupees as a referral to someone, show it so many times that it becomes like, oh, these guys keep giving money out for referrals, right? So using referrals effectively is another way that recruiters don't go. They'll only go out and seek referrals when they are swarmed with roles. Go out and seek referrals when you have only one role available as well. You know, just go out and ask for referrals. Number two is that. Number three is passive sourcing. People do not understand the power of passive sourcing. They'll only The moment a job requisition hit their desks is the moment that they start sourcing up, right? Which again goes back to the same network thing, that you need to build out a network when you have people when you can go and talk to them, right? And it doesn't has to be just HR, right? It can be anyone. It can be a developer. Go ahead and connect with a developer. Tell him, I loved your post that you put out on LinkedIn. Can you tell me a little bit more about it? I'm not a developer, but I have a lot of interest into this particular field. Get to know more people, talk to more people, and do a lot of passive sourcing. Passive sourcing always has to be in a way that you look for people that are not looking out for jobs, because a lot of recruiters are not tapping that group of people. So passive sourcing, leveraging network, leveraging referrals. One last thing that I'll say is, stop being the recruiter who will not pick up the phone of a candidate the moment they get rejected, or not call them back. These are the worst type of recruiters. I know you are swamped with work. I know you have roles. I know you have candidates to take care of. You don't have time, but you have weekends. Call the candidate up, tell them that they were not selected. They're the worst type of recruiters who cannot give back up negative feedback to a candidate. Why is because a lot of times, if you do that, that builds your rapport 10x more than giving out a positive feedback only. And I've had experiences when I've said people that, no man, you were rejected, or no man, this might not work out, and stuff like those. They have given me referrals that have gotten hired. That, hey, I might not be good enough, but this guy is. You can go ahead and select them. And these are the people that are still connected with me. They upskilled themselves. They came back to me, told me that, hey, I am better now. Can you get me interviewed again? I got them interviewed and they got selected, right? You people forget how much power, word of mouth is. When you go back, and because there are only probably a bunch of recruiters, only 1% of recruiters that are going back and giving out negative feedbacks that, it didn't
That's
happen,
true.
didn't work out. So if you do that, you have already gotten a place in that 1% league. People trust you more. People will come back to you. People will give you more referrals, even without asking anything for in return. And then you then is exactly where you make your network, because that developer doesn't live in a world wherein he is alone. He lives in a world wherein he has 10 friends,
Correct. Yeah.
right? So, this would be the probably last thing that I would give. That please go back and give feedbacks to people that are not selected. Do not leave anyone hanging.
Awesome, Akash. This has been a masterclass, and I know it's going to be super helpful. What you'll do is you'll take away each of the segments and break it into videos as long along with the whole podcast. But just as closing thoughts, Akash, first of all, thank you for sharing and giving out, like you said, your trade secrets, but they're only going to be helpful for the community, I'm sure. Any closing thoughts? I know you write a lot, you run a
Mhm.
community. Any just closing thoughts you want to share with folks and where they can find you? We'll leave everything on the description, but irrespective, closing thoughts from you.
One of the things that really worked out for me in the industry in talent acquisition and recruiting is, wherever I've worked, I've always considered my role to be an independent business. When I say it, I've always thought of it like, this is my company. Just my chair and my desk is my company. I have clients that will come out and they'll ask me for roles. I'll fill their roles on their behalf. And that's my company, right? Which takes out the part that, hey, I'm on a full-time job, I have to hire for someone else, then it start becoming like, I have to hire for me, and then you put in more energy into it. So this mantra actually helped me a lot, that I started taking it as my own business, and that helps a lot. And be kind to people. It's very important. I understand that a candidate might not be 100% fit to your role, but that doesn't mean the candidate is good for nothing. Be kind to people. Be honest to people, and be honest to yourself. Just accept whatever things are and probably move on. You'll get backouts, you'll get rejections, you'll get rejected while giving interviews and stuff like those. Doesn't mean it is the end of the world. There is so much more that you can learn and you can grow into. So just never stop hustling. Just keep on, giving your best every day. That's about it.
Awesome. This has been amazing, Akash. Again, thank you for coming on. This was a lot of fun and very information dense.
Same here, Anik. Thank you so much. You asked me some questions that I probably have never been asked into my previous of podcast. So definitely gives a new point of view to me as well.
Yeah, they were really good answers. Again, like I said, folks, whoever's listening in, if you're still, I mean, the to the 5 or 6 of you are still listening in, thank you again. Please go and you can connect with Akash. I'll leave all his links below, his LinkedIn and all the bunch of stuff that he does. He writes really well. I've read quite a few of your posts. You guys should follow. I also have a blog which I've never written. It's something that I need to do. But cool, Akash. I think that's the podcast. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Ranak, and thank you for the guys that are still watching.
All right, man. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye. Take care.